All right, deep divers, welcome back. Buckle up because today we're talking cloud costs and how to keep them from, well, taking over everything.
That's right. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of FinOps.
FinOps, FinOps. It's a buzzword, sure, but what does it actually mean for those of us who, like to see our money not evaporate into the cloud?
That's what we're diving into today. Specifically, we'll be breaking down that very first step in the journey, the crawl stage of the FinOps Maturity Model.
Ah, so that's where our trusty source material
Yes.
comes in, right? The FinOps Maturity Model, crawl maturity. It's giving me baby steps to big wins vibes.
Exactly. And speaking of big wins,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thrilled to be your guide on this deep dive.
Well, we're lucky to have you. Your expertise in this world is seriously impressive. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. For anyone hearing FinOps for the first time, what are we even talking about here?
Think of it this way. Imagine your tech team is off building amazing things in the cloud, which is awesome, but then your finance team is stuck with this mountain of cloud bills. And they're like, what even toy-est this? What am I paying for?
Been there.
Right. So FinOps is like that bridge between tech and finance. It's a set of practices, a system really, that helps everyone understand and manage those cloud costs.
Okay, love that. Bringing order to the chaos. But the source material mentions this crawl, walk, run approach. Does that mean we need to stretch before we start optimizing these costs?
You know it. You wouldn't jump into a marathon on day one of training, right? You build up to it.
Definitely not.
Same goes for FinOps. You start small, build those good habits, and then gradually level up your game.
So being at the crawl stage, it's not a bad thing. It just means you're laying the foundation.
Exactly. You're
Right.
focusing on the fundamentals. It doesn't mean you need some super high-tech setup right away. At this stage, it might be as simple as using spreadsheets and those basic cost allocation reports you get from your cloud provider.
Ugh, the good old spreadsheet. Always reliable. But how do we actually track our progress? How do we know if we're, well, crawling in the right direction?
That's where KPIs, or key performance indicators, come into play. These are measurable goals that keep you on track. For example, the source material talks about aiming for at least 50% cost allocation. This means being able to tie at least half of your cloud cost directly to specific teams or projects.
Ah, so no more mystery charges. You can finally see who's using what.
Exactly. Transparency is key. Now, along with that, you also need to start putting some ground rules in place, think policies around cloud usage, like who has the green light to spin up a server, how big can that server be, setting some limits.
It's like setting those boundaries so things don't spiral out of control.
Exactly. But just like with any new habit, it takes time to get everyone on board and using those policies consistently. That's part of the crawl stage too, building that muscle memory as an organization.
And I imagine there are some quick wins, some low-hanging fruit that organizations can grab right away, even at this early stage, to see some immediate impact.
Absolutely. This is where things get fun. Think about those development servers that are just chilling, doing nothing after hours. Shut them down.
Easy fix.
Right. Or let's say you know you're going to need a certain amount of cloud power for the next year or two. Pre-committing to that usage with your provider can often unlock some sweet discounts.
Saving money and being efficient, that's what I like to hear.
It's a win-win.
But the cloud world can feel overwhelming. There are so many options, so many different services.
You're telling me. And that's why it's crucial to remember that the goal at the crawl stage isn't to become some FinOps superstar overnight.
Yeah, gotta crawl before you can run, right?
Exactly. It's about picking your battles strategically, focusing on what brings the most value to your specific business. Celebrate those small wins and build from there.
Work smarter, not harder, right?
100%. And speaking of working smarter, one of the KPIs mentioned in the source material that really stood out to me was resource-based commitment discount coverage.
Okay, break that down for me.
So imagine getting, say, a 40% discount on your cloud bill simply because you committed to using a certain amount of computing power each month.
Wow, that's huge.
Right. That's the power of these discounts. And in some industries, aiming for 60% coverage with those commitments actually makes sense.
It really makes you stop and think, what kind of savings am I missing out on?
Great point to ponder. So to wrap things up, crawl, walk, run.
Crawl, walk, run.
Master the basics. Celebrate those small wins. Huge thanks to you for breaking down this whole FinOps thing. It's been enlightening, to say the least.
Glad to be here.
And for our listeners, if you want to dive even deeper into the crawl stage, be sure to check out the full source material, which we've conveniently linked in the show notes. Until next time, deep divers, happy cost optimizing.